Hello, I'm Katri Kolesnik, Head of Business Technology Forum. This is the sixth video of a series of interviews with business technology leaders. This year we are celebrating the 10th anniversary of Business Technology Standard, and we decided to interview some CIOs from some of the most successful private and public sector organizations and share it through Business Technology Forum. Our sixth interview is with Antti Koskelin, Chief Information Officer of KONE. I met Antti in Espoo, Finland, where he is located, to talk about business technology past, present and future. Welcome, Antti, to this interview.
Great to be here.
So, looking at the past 10 years, last decade, what's happened in your life?
What happened in my life? If I look at it personally, I got a great princess who was born 12 years ago, so almost into the kind of a last decade. So that's the kind of the highlight of my life. But if I look at my career, well, I changed the job once. I changed the company once as well, and it's been a kind of a roller coaster in a way, because if you look at the things that happened in the IT industry overall, so looking at 10 decade back, companies were either in the growth mode, meaning that they were creating some new businesses, they were in the transformation mode, meaning that they were going into the international markets, or they were in the crisis mode, when it was all about the cost cutting, it was all about the efficiency, productivity and so on. But nowadays, if you look at any company, any industries, you actually need to do all of these three at once. So you need to create the new business opportunities with the businesses, you need to transfer the businesses, you need to increase the productivity, and you need to save the cost at the same time. I think that's the kind of the biggest change in the business kind of environment overall, and it's a big change for the CIOs as well in all the industries.
So during all this time you've been in the role of a CIO, right?
Yeah, this is my second CIO role now. So I was the CIO of KONE Cranes for 6 years, and as a part of the executive board, I had also had the responsibility of the digitalization, digital agenda, and now been 5 years, exactly 5 years today in KONE. In the similar role as well.
Yeah, well, congratulations.
I made it for the 5 years, yes.
So, do you see any differences working as a CIO for KONE or KONE Cranes?
If I compare these two companies, it's been about the same. So, I mean, it's about keeping the infrastructure running. It's about engaging with the businesses to understand that what kind of a development opportunities, challenges they have. It's about bringing in the right partners for the current needs and for the future needs as well. The one major difference most probably is that when I look at the kind of the KONE Cranes, it was more globally managed than KONE is. So KONE is having an offices and businesses in 60 countries. We run it through the 5 areas and so on. And in our case, the areas and the frontline organizations are more independent. And there's a clear reason for that one, and it's the nature of our business as well. And if you really think about the kind of industries that we are supporting, they are pretty local, and the businesses from that point of view need to be more localized as well. But the same kind of challenges are there. So how do you kind of support the growth, which has been pretty continuous and successful in the KONE case as well. We've been growing during the last 20 years. It's about the digitalization opportunities, both for the way that we are engaging with our customers, with our users as well. How do we create the connection to them? We have 450,000 customers, meaning that there's no way that we can personally engage with all of them. We are, supporting customers in those 60 countries. There's more than 1 billion people on every day that use the KONE equipment as well. So there's no way that you can have the personal connection with all of them. But the question is that how do you digitalize that one? And then it's of course about how do you digitalize the kind of a back office as well, HR, finance functions, all of that. So quite a lot of similarities, but quite a different nature of the businesses. So the KONE Cranes was more kind of a B2B business. There's a kind of a B2C element in the KONE business as such, because we are serving those kind of 450,000 customers.
So now if you think back 10 years ago, you being a CIO, and you think of your calendar at that time and what were you doing, and now you see what you're doing now, what has changed?
I wouldn't say that anything in a kind of a daily routines in a way has changed. Of course, now we talk more about the digitalization. We talk about the new digital products, new way of kind of engaging with the customers. But that was actually on our agenda already like 10 years ago. Maybe the role of the partners has increased, at least in the areas that I have been working. So previously we were very much on looking at the way to get the right persons in our own headcount, into our own teams and so on. But now at least in KONE we kind of tend to believe much more into the partnership. So how do we kind of create the partnerships that are strong enough to kind of develop our business opportunities to go forward as well? And we strongly believe that the partners are the major source of our innovation as well. We even say that 99% of the innovation happens outside of KONE.
In those terms, then, if we think of the relationship between the business and IT, do you see any changes in there?
Well, the term that we have used for last decade is the kind of a shadow IT, and quite many people see as a shadow IT as a kind of a threat for the IT organization. I actually see it as an opportunity. I think it's great that you have the business that understand the technology, talk about the same language, are interested enough to go for the technology conferences to see what kind of opportunities you have there and what kind of new capabilities you can have to boost your kind of businesses or kind of be used in the way that you operate or in the way that you engage with your customers as well. And I think that's something that in a way has changed. So previously it was very much the IT organizations that were driving all the development and all the kind of a discussion with the potential technology partners. Now it's more like the business stakeholders, business executives being interested or being part of the discussion from the very beginning. And if you take that as a threat, well, that's kind of blocking the relationship in some of the kind of cases. But if you take that as an opportunity, I mean, isn't it great that finally we talk about the same language? Isn't it great that finally we are interested about the same topics as well? So I think that's a great opportunity.
So how do you see then the role of IT in this context? The businesses were more knowledgeable about technology advancement, sometimes might know a lot and even more than the IT. So what is the role of IT then?
Well, if I go back on the time a little bit, that I'm thinking about again a few decades ago, where the role of the IT was to do the coding. I mean, coding the new solutions based on the specifications, and quite a lot of development happened so that it was actually specifically done for the company that we were working on. Kind of a tailor-made solutions and so on. Then became the era in which the kind of the platformization was the kind of a key term. That how do you take the big ERP, being into SAP or Oracle, into use? How do you configure it for that business processes and so on? So it was very much taking the package solution, configuring it, and then using it. The third era was then around the cloudification. How do you move those same solutions into cloud? Looking at our area, we are already about 60 to 70% in cloud, excluding all the cloud solutions that we are using out of the cloud, out of the box in the cloud. But most of our kind of solutions are running in the cloud. I think this all comes back to the point that we started. That now, well, cloud is still there, the package solutions are still there, but in quite many industries, you go back to the coding as well, because you want to differentiate in a way that you run your businesses. And in some of the areas it requires that you do some tailored development. But still I would say that there are packages around it, there are kind of open source software that you use as a background, the solutions are running in the cloud. So from that point of view, the thing that is coming back to the kind of IT industry is actually the kind of coding itself, which had not happened there for the last decade.
If we think now the resourcing and if we think of people's careers, so what do you see there? What are the kind of trends? And if we think of especially the young generation and then them thinking what they want to do in the future, how would you define this area where we operate? What kind of opportunities are there?
Well, that was a tough question. Being 15 in 6 months' time, so I don't count myself on the young generation anymore, but I have an opportunity to follow what my boys do at the moment. So my boys are now 18 and 20. Their working environment will be completely different compared to what ours were like a few decades ago. I mean, the challenge at the moment is that how do you prepare for your kind of a career, to be ready for the career? In our cases, it was more like that: what kind of a base education you're gonna get, what kind of a certifications you're gonna have. Now for the young generation, it's all about the continuous learning. You can never be satisfied for your own skills. You need to be hungry enough to kind of learn the new things all the time. And you cannot expect that somebody like your manager is coming to tell to you that, hey, this is what you need to learn next, but you need to invent it by yourself. Then what I'm feeling quite strongly is that the young generation is more than willing to kind of completely redesign their careers every now and then. Like you work in one industry for 5 years, 10 years, whatever, then you want to do something completely different. And it's not only about serving the certain company, but it's kind of serving the more like the bigger purpose as well, like the environmental stuff. I mean, how can I make the major contribution for the environment, for the society? And at the same time, I do contribute for some of the companies, which means that some of these kind of companies need to completely rethink the way that they kind of position them into the kind of employer markets, and how do they differentiate in this aspect as well.
If you were not CIO, what would you be?
When I was a young boy, I always dreamed to be the fire chief. So, well, now I'm a fire chief because there's always kind of a fire in the different areas. Well, if I would think about the kind of a next generation of my career, it might have something to do in the coaching. It might have something to do in the mentoring and so on, giving something back that I have already learned and experienced during my careers. Would I do something completely different? Maybe not. I mean, I see my career in a kind of a waves as well. That it was the first 25 years was the career step of kind of learning the things, kind of growing into the person that you are. Then the next 25 years is really been about the kind of executing and helping the companies to grow and so on. So maybe something next that can be something around the kind of giving it back in the terms of the kind of in the forms of the kind of coaching and the mentoring. And I'm really happy to see that there's a kind of a very strong CIO network in Finland as well that is really kind of willing to give it back in the forms of the coaching for the younger generation as well.
So talking about that now, if we think of the business technology standard, you being
What's that?
Yeah, you've been one of the major contributor and sparring partner to it. So what do you think about and what has it meant to you?
Well, I've been using it twice in my career in a big way and in a smaller way several times as well. I think what is great about the IT industry overall is that, and about Finland as well, that if you look at the company that have been heavily contributing into this great model, there are only few competitors, which is a kind of a benefit for us as a society and as a kind of a country as well, that we can actually challenge, we can kind of coach each others as well. We are very open as from our cultural point of view as well to share the best practices. We don't kind of hide them on the shelf, we don't kind of keep them ourselves, but we actually want to share the kind of best practices. I think what has been great about this model is that there are several companies that have put their best practices, and then what you have done as a kind of a standardization forum is to package it in a way that even the newcomers can take it as a kind of the operating model basics and so on. The another thing that is actually great about the model is that it has not been developed only by the management, and actually it has not been developed by the management. So if you remember the first ICT academies that we did in Connect range, the similar things that we did in KONE as well, it was actually the actual doers that we invited in after we had made the decision that okay, we will use that as a kind of basis and a platform to develop our operating model, but then we actually invited the actual doers to develop it further and modify it to kind of look and feel like our own operating model. And maybe the third aspect is that the more standardized operating model you have, and the more that you have standardized it across the different businesses, companies and industries, the better it is for the partners to work with it as well. And of course the fourth one is that if you have then the people rotating around the kind of the companies, then if they know something about the kind of a standard itself, they are able to adapt the ways of working and operating model of the companies that they join a bit faster.
How do you see the future of the standard, or how would you vision what should it be in the future?
The risk here is that we try to make it too complicated. I think we have been talking this one before as well, that we make it to be kind of too comprehensive, too complicated, too detailed oriented, because then it lacks the flexibility of that specific company and that industry to kind of fill in. and then it actually doesn't fit anybody's kind of a purpose. So I think we need to really make sure and focus that we keep it simple, we keep it clear, we keep it on the certain level, but in some cases we might want to go into kind of a more detail. What I would like to see a bit more into the standard, without kind of going into the details, is a bit more of kind of the architectural dimension as well, and maybe something around the cybersecurity operating model as well, because cybersecurity is not about the protection of your infrastructure, of your services at all. It's about how do you design the solutions, how do you design your operating model that you are aware and awake when something happens on the kind of a security side.
Well, I'm sure that your schedules are quite tight and think there are always things to do. So and a kind of pressure. So how do you balance the work life with your own personal life?
Well, I always get excited, and even excited I'm not sure whether it's a kind of in a positive or negative way, when I read Kauppalehti Optio, the Finnish version of the kind of a Financial Times kind of annual or monthly magazine, and there are two sections of it. One is called Good Work and another one is called Good Life. Can you really differentiate those ones? I mean, we are human beings, so we work and we live at the same time. For me personally, it's a challenge. I think it's a challenge for most of us working in the kind of a hectic technology roles and so on. The way that I do balance my life, work and kind of the life balance, is that I put a pretty kind of a strict restrictions between it. So for example, I have not had an email on my phone for the last decade, and it will never go back there. And the reason is that if I would have an email on my phone, my kind of a natural habit would directly drive me to check the emails on every single minute, every single half an hour or so. So that was just a restriction that I needed to put on myself. I'm pretty strict of kind of not working over the weekends as well. There are only really kind of a rare exceptions that I go and work over the weekend. It doesn't mean that I don't think about the work stuff, but I don't go and actually do the stuff, because I believe that I every now and then need to take myself away from the operative challenges and really have an opportunity to look at it with the kind of a helicopter view. And the weekend are for me for the recovery, and it's for the kind of a thinking time more specifically. Yes.
Any hobbies?
Any hobbies? Yeah, I'll try to exercise enough. Not sure whether you can see it. No, you cannot see that effect. I'll try to, walk around enough. If I would really now think about one of my kind of favorite hobbies nowadays, it's sleeping. So the more that I have the opportunity to sleep, the better I feel during the days, during the weekends, during the nights, and so on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.